طيب. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. فإنا نوينا التعلم والتعليم والتذكر والتذكير والنفع والانتفاع والإفادة والاستفادة والحث على التمسك بكتاب الله وسنة رسوله صلى الله عليه وآله وصحبه وسلم، والدعاء إلى الهدى والدلالة على الخير ابتغاء وجه الله ومرضاته وقربه وثوابه سبحانه وتعالى. فاللهم أخرجنا من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمنا بنور الفهم، وافتح علينا بمعرفة العلم، وسهل أخلاقنا بالحلم، وجعلنا ممن يستمعون القول فيتبعون أحسنه. اللهم اجعل أعمالنا خالصة لوجهك، ولا تجعل فيها حظا لغيرك يا مقلب القلوب، ثبت قلوبنا على دينك. آمين. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. How's everyone? Alhamdulillah. So we completed all these examples last week, isn't it so? طيب. So we move on to the next concept, which is that of kana, right? And kana is quite simple. There's not much to it really. And you would have come across kana plenty of times by now. And you're probably very used to translating kana in different ways. You're reading now Qasas or Qisasun Nabiyyin, and you're probably still reading Qissa to Yusuf. And in Qissa to Yusuf, the word kana comes all the time. Kana Yusuf waladan saghiran. وكان ولدا ذكيا. كان أبوه يعقوب يحبه كثيرا. So the word kana appears all the time there. So let's see what our notes have for us in terms of kana. Kana, where the Arabic language is concerned, which is not on the notes here, is something that is called a harf mushabbah bil fi'l. Harf mushabbah bil fi'l. It's a word, what's a harf, it's a particle, mushabbah bil fi'l, that resembles a verb. So that means that it's a harf, right? It's a harf, but it's mushabbah bil fi'l. It has some similarities with the verb, which we will come to learn perhaps in next week, insha'Allah ta'ala. So it resembles a verb in the fact that it changes. A harf doesn't normally change, right? But kana as a particle can change. You can get the word kanu. Kanu yaquluna. They used to say. What did they used to say? الإخوة دائما يلعبون ويذهبون معا فلماذا لا نذهب نحن ونلعب معا. Isn't that you passed that lesson already in Surah Yusuf, in Qissat Yusuf, isn't it so? كانوا يقولون, the brothers used to say, no? لماذا يحب أبونا يوسف وبنيامين أكثر نحن شبان أقوياء. Why is it that our father loves Yusuf and Binyamin more? We are strong men. نحن شبان أقوياء. So the point is that you can see sometimes you have kana, and then you have كانوا يقولون. And then you have يكون also. سيكون لك شأن. You will have a status. سيكون لك شأن. Then you have كانت also, and كانت passed with you in the previous reader already. وهكذا كان أوقدوا نارا وألقوا فيها إبراهيم ولكن تعجب الناس كانت النار بردا وسلام كانت النار بردا وسلاما على إبراهيم. So what is my point over here? My point is that though kana is a harf, which is something that generally doesn't change, we see kana undergoing changes just like a verb. Kanat, kanu, yakunu, yakununa, right? So, but it's not quite a verb. It's not quite a verb. So let's read the notes and see what kana is all about. So he says kana, Ism Kana and its sisters. Introduction. Generally, I don't like to do the theory before the practical. But we'll do the theory now, and we'll consider the practical, the fact that you've been translating the word kana all the time, and you kind of comfortable with it, right? So Ism Kana and its sisters. So kana will have sisters. We'll come to see who the sisters of kana are, all right? And sisters just refers to other things that act in the exact same way. That's why they're called sisters. Meaning what? They share the same grammatical rule, but they have a different base meaning. They share the same grammatical rule, but they have a different base meaning. That's what we mean by sisters. They share the same grammatical rule, but they have a different base meaning. As an example, you would have come across the word laysa, isn't it so? What does laysa mean? It's not, right? So laysa. So laysa is one of the sisters of kana. So you will find that laysa produces the same grammatical changes, the same changes in hal, like kana. And we'll come to see what that means. So for now, I'm just explaining to the heading, Ism Kana, the Ism of Kana and its sisters. What do we mean by its sisters? Its sisters refer to those huruf that share the same grammatical rule as Kana, but they have a different base meaning. Right? Adding Kana or one of its sisters to a noun-based sentence affects three changes. So the first thing is that what? Is that kana, even though it looks like a verb, will not be counted as a verb. And therefore, it's not a verbal sentence. Right? Rather, kana is an add-on. It's an add-on to a noun-based sentence. It's an add-on to a noun-based sentence. So you will come to see. Okay, let's first read the notes. Number one, a meaning change. That kana changes the sentence to a past tense meaning. We all know that already, right? Let's take some examples that we are familiar with. You have your readers here with you, isn't it? So let's look for some examples of kana. Let's go from the beginning. Kana Ibrahimu waladan saghiran. Kana Ibrahimu waladan saghiran. Is that the first? Kana Yusufu waladan saghiran. That's the first sentence, isn't it so? Kana Yusufu waladan saghiran. So if you were to take away the kana there, what would the sentence be? Yusufu waladun saghirun. Yusufu waladun saghirun. Isn't it so? Why? Mubtada khabar. Yusufu waladun saghirun. Yusuf is a small boy. But now you want to take that. Remember, the difference between the verb and the noun is what? A verb has a tense. So there's time. Now, so how do you do that for the noun-based sentence? Kana is one of the ways to add more meaning to the sentence. So sometimes you might want to negate the sentence. For example, ليس يوسف ولدا صغيرا. Yusuf is not. You might want to say Yusuf was a small boy. كان يوسف ولدا صغيرا. Right? So the noun sentence at its core, it's just making a statement. No time, no necessarily. Right? No time, no it's only affirming something. It's not saying anything more. So كان يوسف ولدا صغيرا would have been يوسف ولد صغير. So the first change is the meaning change. كان changes the sentence to a past tense meaning. وكان له 11 أخا. وكان له كان يوسف ولدا وكان له 11 أخا. Leave that sentence, it's a bit more complex. So the next one will read وكان يوسف ولدا ذكيا. وكان يوسف ولدا ذكيا. How would you have said that sentence in normal? Excellent. يوسف ولد ذكي. And what would that have meant? Yusuf is an intelligent boy. So, but now we want the sentence to undergo a meaning change, which is one of the primary functions of kana. So what do? We add kana. We say kana Yusuf waladan dhakiyan. Yusuf was an intelligent boy. وكان أبوه يعقوب يحبه أكثر من جميع إخوته. Is that the next sentence? وكان أبوه يعقوب يحبه أكثر من جميع إخوته. How do you read that sentence without the kana? أبوه يعقوب يحبه أكثر من جميع إخوته. The only change is to take away the kana. Isn't it so? Why? Because kana is for the past tense. And there's no other word that you have to change to rafa. Why? Because the khabar is a jumla fi'liya. Can you see that? The khabar is a jumla fi'liya. أبوه يعقوب يحبه أكثر من جميع إخوته. So the khabar is that jumla fi'liya over there. Can you see that? Yes, you must combine your collective knowledge of Nahwu, right? Just because we completed that lesson doesn't mean that we're done applying it. We will continue to apply it across our use of the Arabic language. Okay. كان أبوه يعقوب يحبه أكثر من جميع إخوته. نعم. Okay, so where's the next sentence? ذات ليلة رأى يوسف what? رؤيا عجيبة. Okay, where's the next كان? وكان أبوه يعقوب نبيا. On the next page. وكان أبوه يعقوب نبيا. How do you, let's take this as the last one. How do you make this a not past tense? Excellent. أبوه يعقوب نبي. أبوه يعقوب, his father Yaqub is a prophet, nabiyun. So obviously you know that Abuhu Yaqub is badal. You know badal? It's fine. You don't need to know badal. I thought you might know that. It's fine. We'll teach it to you in due time, inshallah. So let's get back to our point. So the first thing that changes when we introduce kana to a jumla ismiya, to a noun by sentence, is that kana changes the sentence to a past tense meaning, right? Let's look at number 2. The next 2 changes will be a change in terminology. The next 2 changes will be a change in terminology, right? So what are the 2 parts of the jumla ismiya? The mubtada and the khabar. The mubtada and the khabar. So when kana enters upon the jumla ismiya, what does it mean for a harf to enter upon a word? To come before it. That's how they write it, like in, they say it like that in when you speak about languages. When kana enters upon a jumla ismiya, meaning it comes before the jumla ismiya, then two changes will take place in terms of terminology. What was once called the mubtada will now be called the Ism Kaana, and it will remain in halatul rafa. Does that make sense? Okay. So, Kana Yusufu waladan, Yusuf was a boy. So, Yusufu waladan, Yusuf is a boy. Yusuf is the mubtada, but when I say Kana Yusufu, Yusuf now becomes the Ism of Kana. Becomes the Ism of Kana. Kana Abuhu, his father was. Abuhu, his father would have been the mubtada. But when I put kana the kana abuhu, abuhu is now the ism of kana, right? So what was once the mubtada now becomes the ism kana. And it remains in halatul raf. It remains in halatul raf. That's easy to understand? Khayr. The next term is the khabar. And if you have an ism of kana, and then you're going to have a khabar of kana. So what was the khabar now becomes the khabar of kana. So it was just the khabar, now it's the khabar of kana. And the difference between the normal khabar and the khabar of kana is that the khabar of kana is in halatu nasb, as you have seen in all the examples. Now, so if you wanted to summarize these three notes, which are already summarized, you could say that when kana, when the ism of kana enters upon, or let's say come before, maybe you will understand that clearer. When the ism of kana comes before a jumla ismiya, two changes take place. A change in meaning and a change in terminology. As for the change in meaning, then it causes the sentence to be in the past tense. And as for the change in terminology, then the mubtada becomes the ism kana and it's in halatul rafa. And the khabar becomes the khabar kana and it's in halatul nasb. So, okay, revise that. I'm going to close book test you in the next 3 minutes. Oh, no, I'm serious. It's going to be a spot test here where you just turn your notes over and then we see if you can remember your terms. And then we'll get into some of the exercises, inshallah. It's easy stuff, right? Easy stuff.
Salam Maulana.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Maulana.
Alhamdulillah, yourself.
Alhamdulillah. Can I ask a question around the kana?
You may.
Maaf?
You may ask.
Okay, shukran. You say that kana changes the sentence to a past tense sentence.
Mm-hmm.
So the question is, because we are taught that there are present tense and past tense verbs. So what would the reason be for not so in the sentence wakana abu Yaqub yuhibbu? And so we would add a kana in front if we wanted to change that to a past tense sentence. Why don't we just change it the verb from yuhibbu to habba, or to the present past tense verb? I don't have a question.
The question is very clear.
Shukran.
Right. So we might ask ourselves this in relation to, I'm going to take your general question and I'm going to specify it for the purposes of Mizan. And I'm going to say that, why is it important for us to study Kana? And how does understanding the choice of Kana within a sentence impact meaning? And how does that enhance our appreciation of the Quran? That's the Mizan question, isn't it so? Because we're not learning Nahwu arbitrarily. So you've given a good example, and I will take that example, wherein you said that the difference between a noun sentence or a nominal sentence and a verbal sentence is the fact that there's a clear time attachment in the verb, which is not there with the noun. So why don't I just use a past tense noun? Why don't I just use a past tense noun? Because when the word kana, remember I said kana is not a fi'l, it's not a verb. But it's also not a normal harf. It's like in between. And because of that, kana can have an impact when it's used in junction with verbs. And that is the reason why we use kana with the verb, because it tells us more. When I say, أبوه يعقوب أحبه كثيرا أو أبوه يعقوب أحبه أكثر من جميع إخوته. His father Yaqub loved him more than all his brothers. That's like a categorical statement. But if I want to create the picture of his love, then I use the word kana and I use the word yuhibbu. Why? Because the past tense, it almost locks an action. Like you said, he loved him. It could give you the impression that he doesn't love him now. But if I wanted to tell you of something that always was and it continued to be that way, then I use something which in the English language you call past continuum. You call it what? Past continuum, right? Used to, right? So to create the effect of a continuous action within the past, you will use kana with a present tense verb. So you say, kana abuhu yuhibbu. His father used to love him, which is different from his father loved him. So it creates a different meaning. Like if you can appreciate language and you can appreciate the difference between his father would love him, like the boys would play, the boys played. There's a difference between saying that. When you say the boys played, means maybe they had one play date. But when you say the boys would play, it tells you that that was something that there is a repetitive occurrence of that. No. So when you say his father loved him, it's almost dry. But when you say his father used to love him, it takes that same thing and it livens it. So that's one of the ways, or one of the benefits of kana. One of the benefits of kana is that it creates a more vivid mental picture. And that is, oftentimes, that's the purpose of language. The purpose of language is to recreate for you something that it's just a moment in the past. But to recreate that moment in a way that is more, that tells you more about it, kana can be very useful in that regard, right? So obviously, if this applies to language in general, then certainly the Quran, when the Quran employs kana, like innahu kana tawwaba, so Allah was oft forgiving. Why does Allah use the word kana? Wouldn't it be more appropriate to say that Allah is? So why make that choice? And so kana gives it's more like, it's a more dynamic meaning when you say that. and when you apply to other places in the Quran. Now, can I test you now? Five. So what's the, we only need 3 people to tell us. 1 person from the ladies, and 1 person from the males, and 1 person from the online to tell us the, give us a summary of Kana based on our reading our notes and our light discussion. Forget about all the side missions. What is Kana to you in essence at this moment? Hmm? Hmm? Okay, I'll put it to you like this. Kana is a harf that has similarities with a verb, but it's still a harf. Oh, better not to say it's a verb. Later on, we will say it's a verb, but it's not a verb. As I said, Kana is a harf that has similarities with a verb. And it's used with a jumla ismiya. When Kana is used with a jumla ismiya, the jumla ismiya undergoes 2 types of changes. One in meaning and the other one in terminology. As for the change in meaning, then it will give the sentence a past tense meaning. And as for the change in terminology, then what was the mubtada will become the ism of Kana, and it will remain in halatul rafa. And what was the khabar will become the khabar of Kana, and it will be in halatul nasb. Is that simple enough? That's simple. Okay, now on milestone. Mm-hmm. 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 Excellent. طيب. Not yet. طيب, next one. Anyone from the ladies? Yes, of course. comes نصب. comes نصب. طيب. Excellent. طيب, someone from the online? Don't now read your notes, otherwise I have to ask you to put your camera on.
Okay, I'll go on and up.
بسم الله, تفضل.
So the Kana is a harf that has similarities to a verb. When it's used with a jumlatul ismiya, then changes the sentence to a past tense sentence. It also changes terminology. So what used to be the mubtada is now called the Ism Kaana, and the khabar is called the khabar of Kaana, and the Ism Kaana is in rough state, and the khabar will change to nasb state.
Good. Acceptable. Now, so our example here is example. Ar-rajulu tawilun, the man is tall, is a noun by sentence. When kana is added, kana ar-rajulu tawilan, the man was tall. The man was tall. It becomes that, right? So a part of learning is also like knowledge management, right? How do you like you will come to learn a profuse amount of things if you remain in the same area of study. How do you manage that like information for yourself? I think one of the ways that makes it most easy for students is like diagrams, you know. So you must work to make those trees and diagrams in your mind about these things, right? Otherwise, you're going to attempt to burden yourself to memorize all these laws in Word. And that's not what we intend. You just need like a working knowledge about it, right? So I would have said, like in my mind, I would have put on top, I would have said, kana plus jumla ismiya equals changes. And I would have put changes there. And then I would have put one arrow going this way and other one going that way. And I would have said change in meaning, and then I would have put the arrow down, and I would have said present. I would have said to past tense. And then I would have taken another arrow and I've said terminology, and then I would have put two arrows there, and I would have said mubtada to ism kana, and then I would have said khabar to khabar kana. And I've put another arrow down, and I would have said remains now raf, and I would have put another arrow down, and I would have said becomes nasb. And that would have been the whole lesson for me, right? So knowledge management is very important, and you have to, like, as a student, you have to find ways that work for yourself. Like I find most students understand things well through diagrams, right? Now, so that's the khabar of kana, and these are its sisters. So for homework, I will discuss with you each of the sisters next week, inshallah. But for homework now, you practice the kana to page number 16. To page number 16. And then a side mission. Okay, I'll leave the side mission, inshallah. I'll give it to you next week. Right. So you know what to do? You know how the kana works? There's another thing that we'll discuss, inshallah, next week, is that because we are also concerned with how to translate Arabic, right? I'll give you 3 rules of thumb, 3 or maybe 4, regarding how to translate the kana, right? But we'll discuss it next week if someone can remind me. For example, if you say like kana lahu, there was for him. When you use kana with li, then you will translate it as had. No, so kana lahu akhun akhar. He had another brother. Not, you will translate it for him was, but it actually is he had. You know? So when you have kana and that lam tamlik, then you translate it as had. When you have kana with the present tense verb, then you will translate it, for example, as used to. You say kana yuhibbu, used to love. Kana yaf'alu, used to do. So like that. So I'll give you a few of them in the next week, inshallah. Someone can remind me about that. We suffice for that for today. So please make sure that you do the homework so that we can participate in the class. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. الحمد لله رب العالمين.